And now we'll take you to South Africa, where a 32-year-old man has been arrested in connection with a mass shooting at an unlicensed pub in Salisville Township, west of Pretoria, that left 12 people dead, including 3 children and 13 injured. Police recovered an unlicensed firearm believed to have been used in the attack. Now, the suspect was intercepted in Limpopo, more than 340 kilometers from the crime scene. The arrest comes on the same day as another pub shooting in Beckersdale Township, which killed 9 people and injured 10 others. Well, and joining me to discuss updates on these incidents and what the South African government is doing to curb gun violence is the editor-in-chief of our City News and chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum, Ngalwa. Glad to have you join me on the program.
Thank you for having me, Indy. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, about a dozen gunmen. I mean, this is the latest shooting, but this was the one I later read towards the end of the story I just read. But about a dozen gunmen in a minibus and car shot 9 dead in a tavern. What more can you tell us about this incident that occurred on Sunday? And then, of course, this latest shooting incident that killed 12.
So I think the starting point is to say that lately in South Africa, there's been an increase in these type of attacks where you're seeing mass shootings. But in the nature in which they're happening and what is understood to be behind it, it's understood to be criminal gangs that are attacking each other, mostly involved in illegal mining. Obviously, Johannesburg as a metropolitan is a big mining city. It's the biggest city, basically, from an economy point of view in Africa. So it attracts all sorts of people. So between the 2 shootings, we do not know for now if one is related to the other, but there seems to be a particular pattern playing out in these attacks where there are rival gangs that are fighting with each other. Obviously, South Africa has a big gun problem, and I think we'll get to that in this conversation. But so far, the man who was arrested is said to have been the mastermind. Now, you would ask yourself the question that usually when a mastermind is apprehended, the foot soldiers would come before the boss. But in this instance, we're told that it's the mastermind. So we don't know the veracity of that information. And also we don't know how involved he was, but we'll wait and see. I think it's an unfolding story since the arrest was also very recent.
What you're telling us is that these attacks are cult-related activities.
I didn't catch your question.
What you're saying, in effect, is that these attacks are cult-related activities, gangs trying to probably outdo one another.
So Johannesburg has a lot of mines, obviously, and also it attracts a lot of people who leave their rural parts and the hinterlands to live in Johannesburg. Just to give you a basic statistic, Johannesburg as a city is home, and its outskirts is home to about 6 million people. And the province of Gauteng is home to 10 million. It's actually one of the smallest provinces of South Africa's 9 provinces, but it's the economic hub of the country. So there are a lot of abandoned mines that were left by mining companies who ransacked them and left. And now what you are seeing is that there are artisanal miners and those who are desperate, who are not necessarily gangs or gangsters, but they're just poor people who are trying to eke out a living. But obviously there is a big criminal and organized crime situation in South Africa that is playing out, and criminal gangs are in charge of these areas. So there are a lot of turf wars that are playing out. But I must say, though, that the nature of, and I think the reason why it's caught your attention in Nigeria and other parts of the world is the fact that we're seeing these mass shootings playing out in quick succession, and it's something that is now on the rise in South Africa as a pattern that we're observing. One, between criminal gangs, and it looks like they've played out in other areas where there's no mining, but also in those areas there have been involvements of gangs either organized crime in particular specific areas.
Well, there have been several mass shootings at what is called she-beans or taverns in South Africa in recent
Yeah.
years, including, of course, this one we're talking about that was carried out by a multiple suspect in an unlicensed bar near South African capital Pretoria, where at least 12 people, like we just discussed, have been killed, including a 3-year-old girl. What's the situation with gun laws in South Africa, and what's the cause of the increase? I mean, one could say it's increasing. Will I be right to say that? Increase in these shootings?
There has been an increase in shootings, but maybe first let me start here. A shebeen is actually loosely it's a beer hall. But the reason why these shootings are happening in these beer halls is not by mistake or a fluke. The reality is that in any environment, in any urban center, actually, it is the poor people who bear the brunt of crime and criminal activity. The poor can protect themselves. They can put up high walls and security, but the rich rather, but the poor cannot. So shebeens are unregistered, mostly beer halls in poor communities. And this is where these gangs, obviously, these are people who live within those localities or operate within those localities. That's why these shootings are taking place there. But also, you would know that the poor are the less protected in that there is no visible policing where poor people live. That is why you are seeing this pattern and why you are raising the issue of the pattern of this happening in Shebeens. These are poor areas. Yes, we're seeing an increase in these types of attacks, but in terms of guns in society, South Africa has very good gun laws. But the problem is the implementation and the policing. And the research shows that the guns that are in society are actually guns that had been issued legally and got lost. Some of them are actually guns that leaked out of the police system, where people turn in their guns or the police recover illegal guns, but because of corruption in the police force, some policemen would sell those guns to criminal gangs. So in Nigeria, for instance, I know that there's a lot of guns which are called artisanal guns, which are makeshift guns. In South Africa, these are not those kind of guns. These are your 9mm, your AK-47s and such like that have leaked through the system. So we've got very weak policing, and also it starts with also the firearms registry, where we don't know how many guns are out there in society, how many guns are there. We know how much are illegal, but we don't know how many that are out there that are illegal. But this is also not something that is by design. It actually tracks its history in South Africa's violent history of apartheid, which was preceded by colonialism. In the 80s up to the 90s, there were a lot of guns that came into the country in what was a state-sponsored black-on-black violence, when the apartheid forces and government did not want to give up power and actually were using some black parties or right-wing black parties to fight the liberation movement. Some of those guns are still very much in society. And what that also has done is that it has created a society that is numb and that is actually more accepting to violence. Violence is normal. People are killed every day and no one flinches because we've been numbed to it. So there's a lot that needs to be done from the government side to do that. But it starts with first ensuring that the guns registry is cleaned up, and the government does more to recover some of these illegal guns that are proliferating society.
Oh, well, it's interesting that you're fingering the police and the question of corruption, how those guns leave them and get into the society. Thank you so much, Bu Ngalwa, for your interesting submissions on the world.